No, not necessarily.
Okay.
One of the things you look at real hard is the woman's family history of cancer, estrogen-related. And that's because there is also research that shows us that even people in their 30s who have their estrogen and testosterone and other sex steroid hormones measured, the ones who have the highest levels in their 30s have a slightly higher risk of cancer when they get to be in their 50s and 60s, and that's estrogen and testosterone-related cancer. So nobody at all is ever going to say that these hormones are totally safe. They're not. Again, women get breast cancer at 33, men get testicular cancer, etc. But they're safer than anything else out there, and if they're monitored properly, they can be kept very safe. But I discourage people from going to high normal levels just simply because it is going to raise the risk just like it would with a younger person. Now, having said that, the gender that's easier to persuade not to go to high normal are the ladies. Some of the guys, they like that testosterone so much that I have a hard time talking them out of giving up to, one micro something underneath the high end of normal, because they just like the way they feel. But then I tell them about risks and monitoring, and a person has to make up their own mind at that point once they have the information.
Can we get back to the DHEA for a moment? Because once somebody has elected to optimize their hormones and they're getting tested through a 24-hour urine test, which is very different than the way testing used to happen even 10 years ago, everybody would say.
Actually not, man.
No?
We've been doing that we've been asking people to do a collection of urine for 24 hours and getting it checked for over 30 different steroid metabolites. And just incidentally, that word steroid is not a bad one. Steroid means estrogen, testosterone, DHEA, progesterone. What we think of as steroids, which so-called authorities have demonized, those are pseudo-steroids. Those are space alien molecules, and what I mean by that is that the natural human steroid was jiggered so it could be patented. It is no longer a molecule found on the planet anymore, and that way somebody could sell it at a really high price. And yes, they do cause trouble because they don't belong in the body. They're not really steroids. They're pseudo-steroids.
I just want to go back and clarify one thing.
Yeah.
You maybe have been doing 24-hour urine testing for many, many years, but
That's
as
right.
a standard of care, as far as I've been aware for the last 15 years, people have been taking their blood tests and saliva tests to measure hormones. So I think you're way ahead of your time.
The problem with the term standard of care
Is that it's warped.
is that it isn't the best care in many cases.
That's right.
Sometimes people say, well, why do I have to collect 24-hour urine tests? The last doctor just wanted a blood test. And I'll reach on the other side of my desk and pull out this chart that shows all these different steroid molecules. I'll say, that's a procarcinogen, that's an anticarcinogen. This is how they get that way. I want to know your entire pattern. And you cannot, and let's underline cannot, do that on blood or salivary testing. It's just not available, and here's why. Nature doesn't make it available. There's a professor back in the 1970s by the name of Wonkope who got some more brave women volunteers to have, get this now, estriol radioactively labeled injected into their bodies.
Oh, my God.
No kidding. It was bioidentical, but it was radioactive because he wanted to keep track of it. And I don't think I would have volunteered for that, but these women did. Okay. And then he did follow-up blood tests to find out how long that stuff would stay in the bloodstream. The average was between 8 and 63 minutes. And after that, it was disappeared. It went. Where'd it go? We don't know where it went. Well, I know where it went. It came out in the urine. And it went into the tissues. And so any lab, you ask any blood lab, can you check a blood test for estriol? They'll say, no, because we never find any unless you're pregnant. But on the other specimen...
Oh, my God. Even the Life Extension Foundation, who I'm a member of, and I know you're on their board of advisors, they offer this great thing where you can order your own blood tests.
Yeah.
So that means that blood tests that I ordered for my hormones are not going to be as accurate because the most accurate way to get them is through the urine.
Yes, because when you have a number of women collect the urine for 24 hours and check that for estriol and estrone and estradiol, what you'll find is the large majority of women are outputting into the urine more estriol than the other two. And in fact, that was the basis of Dr. Lemon's work back in the 60s, that in order to stay in an anticarcinogenic balance, a woman had to have more estriol than the total sum of the other two classical estrogens, the estrone and the estradiol. Now, I'm happy to tell you that Life Extension Foundation actually does offer the 24-hour urine test.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's great.
They just possibly don't publicize as much as they should, but they do offer the test, and their counselors know how to counsel people on it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So in the future, I'd certainly recommend doing that. Here's another reason. There's a very potent estrogen. It was previously called a minor estrogen, but it's very, very potent as an anticarcinogen, and you can't get that on a blood test. The stuff is called 2-methoxyestradiol. If you put that into your search engine, you'll come up with all kinds of information about how it's been found to help slow and even reverse progression of breast cancer, prostate cancer, bone cancer, blood cancer, stomach cancer, pancreatic cancer even. No kidding. Now, I didn't say cure, but it does slow them down. It does help to reverse them. And if used with cancer chemotherapy drugs, they don't have to use near as much cancer chemotherapy because this type of estrogen is such a potent anticarcinogen. Anyway, you can't measure that in blood, but you can measure it in urine. And there are ways of getting our own bodies to make more of that estrogen internally. So if a woman gets that 24-hour urine specimen and she's low in estriol, why, we have her take iodine. And 98 times out of 100, up goes her estriol. And if a woman gets the 24-hour urine specimen and finds she's low in this very potent anticarcinogen, there are several things she can take to raise her levels of this stuff called 2-methoxyestradiol. Among them are the form of B12 called methyl B12, the form of folate called methylfolate, the stuff called S-adenosylmethionine. There's a molecule called betaine, which is otherwise known as trimethylglycine. So a number of things in the health food store that actually will help a woman's body make more of the most potent anticarcinogen there is in the estrogen group. That's why the 24-hour urine specimen, in my opinion, is the only way to go for at least initial follow-up. Now, let's say the person's in the 80% group, and we find out, oh, her body's metabolizing all these things just fine. Then do we have to keep doing it the same 24-hour urine over and over again? Nope. We can probably rely on how she's feeling, maybe blood tests for a minor version, and only do the whole test every couple, 3 years. But we do that first test to screen out the people who really need the metabolic help. And by the way, the same thing applies to guys. The first follow-up, we want the whole 24-hour urine test because, oddly enough, Professor Leon Bradlow from Rockefeller University has shown that the balance of estrogens in a guy's body can help determine prostate cancer risk or not. No kidding. So we always want to look at least I do, I always want to look at as many metabolites as I possibly can of the hormones people are using the very first time, and the only way of doing that, and by the way, it keeps the cost down too, because there's 30 or 40 metabolites, and the whole test is about $300. The only way of doing that is with the 24-hour urine specimen. Then after that, if everything's going well, especially with guys, we can go back to a blood test for testosterone and not have to have them, as one guy so politely put it, pee in a bottle for 24 hours.
What about when people come to you and they're already on a hormone? Let's say they're taking oral progesterone, for example. And women and men are going to be in different places already working with something. Some of them will have nothing. But how will you know from the test, for example, what that 200 milligrams of oral progesterone is impacting on the rest of the metabolites that you're looking at through the urine?
Well, just because I've been looking at them for about, almost 30 years now, I know what it's going to do if you take it orally. It's all going to come out in the urine. Now, I exaggerate